Planes would take, if they saw something suspicious, they would take a picture of it, and I was to try to figure out where that was, because I was in a section called Photo Intelligence, Photo Intel. I wasn't very intelligent, but you learned. The more you did it, the better you got at it.
Hi everybody, my name is Zach Dunn from Global Veteran Stories, and before we get into our veteran story today, I just want to introduce myself and my project. Global Veteran Stories is a video documentary series I started back in 2021, dedicated to preserving the stories of World War II, Korean War, and Vietnam War veterans. Inspired by the story of my own granddad, who served in the Second World War in the British Airborne as a paratrooper in Northern Africa, Germany, and France. Now I want to tell you how you can help out with my mission. As of August 2024, I've interviewed over 50 veterans from 8 different countries, and my trips to interview these veterans are funded from people just like you. You can donate through my mission through Patreon, where you can set up a monthly donation subscription, or through my website or PayPal, where you can choose any dollar amount that you like. Right now, I'm a one-man show, and finding these veterans is becoming more and more difficult. So please, if you know a World War II, Korean War, or Vietnam War veteran, whether a family member, a friend, neighbor, or part of your community, please visit my website and fill out a contact form, and I would love to help preserve their stories. Every day, we lose more and more veterans. This history needs to be saved and preserved for future generations. Thank you so much for your support. Now, let's get into our veteran story. Sytske Drijber, born in Friesland, Holland, immigrated to Canada at the age of 6. Sytske volunteered for the Allied Force Royal Netherlands Army Intelligence in 1943 at the age of 23. She trained in the US with the Women's Auxiliary Army Corps, or the WAACs, then was sent to Australia. She trained for the Dutch Colonies, and as World War II came to an end in May of 1945, Sytske traveled to Java a few months later, right into the Independence War with the local population. She had various jobs, many in photo intelligence, reviewing maps, as well as photographs of Japanese and Allied planes. I sat down with Sytske Drijber in January of 2023 in her home in Rockwell, Ontario, to save her stories on video. So what I like to start off with is just state your first and your last name, whenever you're ready.
All right. I'm Sytske Drijber.
And what is your birthday?
It's January the 29th, 1920.
And your birthday's, I guess, tomorrow then, so you'll be, how old will you be?
103.
You look fantastic.
Unbelievable. 103.
And where were you born?
In Holland, in the province of Friesland, which is in sort of the northwest province. And the Frisians are they're old part of the Dutch, and they speak their own language.
And when did you come to Canada?
When I was 6 years old.
Just going off your service, what do you remember hearing about the start of the war? Did you hear it on the radio? What do you remember at that time?
Oh, I was a teenager at that time, and it was on the radio. And you know, the radio was kind of new then. Not everybody had radio. There was no television. Yeah, we listened to it totally, and particularly because I was foreign born anyway, so I was really interested in hearing what was going on.
And did you volunteer? Were you enlisted? Like, how did you get involved with the service?
Oh my goodness. I volunteered, yes. I decided I would join up, and I thought I would like to join up with the Dutch, and that was possible. But then I found out that I would be sent to the south of the States, in a place called Chattanooga. And at that time, there was a song, Chattanooga Choo Choo.
I got my bag.
And, well, it was a woman's camp. I was trained marching and things like that. I had to march at the front because I was the tallest one. So I had to be careful that when they gave commands, go left or go right, that I obeyed, because the people behind me would be following me. I could send them into the ditch. So I had to learn to obey commands.
Where did you travel after that point? You were in the States. Did you get enlisted overseas? Where did you go from there?
Well, because I was in the Dutch army, and the Dutch had possessions in the South Pacific, after I was trained in the States, then they sent us to Australia, because Australia was near the Dutch possessions. And I guess I was in Australia for maybe 6 months. And then the atom bomb came. And so the war was over. And so then we could go to the Dutch East Indies, the Dutch possessions. And then we had to try to free the Dutch East Indies, because in the meantime, the people there had decided they wanted to be free from Holland and begin their own life, having nothing more to do with the Dutch. So when we got there, we had to fight the people who lived there. We had a second battle on our hands. Every day, nighttime, or I guess in the daytime as well, but mostly at nighttime, there would be shooting. And so it was kind of a dangerous way. And since I was in the women's part of it, they put the women in a nunnery. And it was supposedly safer that way. But at night, you could hear shooting everywhere.
What was your role? Like, what did you sort of do when you were in Australia and these other parts of the world?
Well, they didn't know what to do with me because I was a teacher. And they didn't seem to find a place where I would fit in. So they tried various things. I even tried to teach me how to draw a map in the geographic section. And I never realized when you look on a map, there's a different kind of print for a river or an ocean or a piece of land. It was difficult. And then what else? Oh, I had various jobs.
What I read about, there's a few articles about you. You had to inspect photos of Japanese installations and hits, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Japanese and our own as well, yes.
Were they photographs of planes? Like, can you...
the planes would take, if they saw something suspicious, they would take a picture of it, and I was to try to figure out where that was, because I was in a section called Photo Intelligence, Photo Intel. I wasn't very intelligent, but you learned. The more you did it, the better you got at it.
There was also a part of the island of Java and sort of the Dutch army as well. The Japanese prisoner of war camps. Like, do you remember what was going on at that time and how were you involved with the island of Java?
Well, I think what was going at that time was that the Dutch had arrived and they expected that the people would be happy that they would be free from the Japanese, but the people had decided that at that time was a good time for them to become that they would own the country themselves and become free from Holland, so that they fought the Dutch. We were not aware that this was going to happen. So every night and in the daytime as well, they were fighting us, fighting the Dutch. I guess that's what you call freedom fighters.
I also read about how you met your husband. Did you want to tell that story? Like, what was that process like when you met your husband?
Oh, well.
And where was that, I guess?
My husband was a professional soldier, and I was just somebody that was there for a short period. But anyway, there were not very many women around, so we had a great time because we were young women and there were a lot of men around. And so one night I went out with a policeman, and a policeman at that time had automobiles, and hardly anybody had a car. So it was great to go out with somebody who had an automobile. It's hard to believe, but being a policeman, he did something which was wrong. And I guess many people did it at that time. In Java, the city of Java, there were wealthy people, of course, and they had a beautiful home, and we would just go into a home and claim it for our own. And I was ignorant. I had no idea that this was going on. And so anyway, this policeman, imagine a policeman, he took me into this house where people were having a party. It was a wealthy home. He took me into the dining room, showed me the buffet, and there was beautiful silver in the drawers. And he said, "There, would you like anything? Take what you like." And I was so disgusted. I thought that this is not the place for me. Well, after, I won't go into it all, but anyway, I decided this man was not, he just wasn't the right kind of person. So I asked him if he would take me home, and he did. But by the time I got home, I was late. You know, in the Army, they have agreements with you that there's certain times that you have to be in your barracks. And I was late. So that meant that the following day I would be punished. And so I had to go to this office for my punishment. I had no idea what it would be, but it was a senior official, and he said, "Don't you do that again." So I was happy. But then outside of his office, there was a junior officer, and he had to take my name and write down what I was disciplined for, that kind of thing. And he was not like his boss. He really scolded me for being late and how much damage I could cause, and etc. And he said, and you're not even ashamed. You're not even blushing. And a person just needs to say that to me, and I blush. And that was exactly what he wanted. And so that became my future husband. That's how I met him.
No way.
Oh dear. He wanted to see a girl that could blush still. I guess you young fellows are just the same.
Oh, yeah.
And so anyway, we got talking afterwards. He asked me for a date, and it turned out that he had a friend, an army friend. There weren't very many women, because most of the women, the Japanese had put them in a camp, in women's camps. We women were kind of a scarce commodity, and he asked me out on a date. After that, we lived happily ever after, I guess.
How long were you guys married?
Married? Oh my goodness. We had 6 children, see up there.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, my husband was a teacher for quite a long time.
What year did you guys get married?
I think it was 1946.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We got married in the Indies, in Java. We tried to find a priest or somebody who would marry us. We finally found a small church which was not destroyed, invited all our friends to come, had a little ceremony. That was it. Didn't have a chance to have a bridal gown or anything like that. But I was fortunate. My husband knew somebody, and he knew a lady, a seamstress, that's the word. She had material, and she showed it to me, and it was beautiful. And so she measured me and made me a dress. So that was my wedding dress.
That's amazing.
It was not really the right way to do things, but that's the way it was then. It was possible.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
What was your husband's name?
Oh, Sytske Drijber.
And what did your husband do? Was he in Holland, and how did he, what was his job?
Well, he was in the Second World War. Germany was in the war. He had to fight the Germans as well, so he was put in a camp in Germany, and it was a very well-known camp. It was one from which you could not escape. It was called Colditz. I don't know whether you know it, but there's lots of books written on people who went to Colditz, English people as well. And it was noted as the special camp from which nobody could escape. And my husband did escape from it. So there's books written about him. So that's kind of different.
Yeah.
Colditz Castle, the formidable fortress located in Germany that became known during World War II as Oflag 4C. Originally built in the 11th century as a Renaissance palace, Colditz's imposing walls and strategic position made it a perfect location for a high-security prisoner of war camp. During World War II, Oflag 4C became infamous as a special POW camp for Allied officers who had repeatedly escaped from other camps, or who were considered particularly dangerous. The Nazi regime believed Colditz was escape-proof, but it would soon gain its reputation as a site of some of the most daring escape attempts during the war. The prisoners at Colditz were not ordinary soldiers. They were seasoned officers, including members of the Allied nations, such as the British Commonwealth, France, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Poland. The most famous escape attempt from Colditz involved a secret glider constructed in the attic of the castle by British prisoners, intending to soar to freedom from the castle's roof. though the glider never saw action due to its camp liberation by the U.S. forces in April of 1945. It remains a testament to the prisoners' incredible ingenuity and determination. Among the most notable escapes was that of a Dutch prisoner, Sytske Drijber. In September of 1941, Drijber, along with his fellow inmates, managed to descend from the castle walls using a rope made of bedsheets. This daring escape was one of over 300 attempts, of which 30 were successful.
Did he ever talk about it? Like, do you know how he escaped?
Well, inside the camp, there were people who somehow learned how to make fake photographs. They figured all kinds of ways to make fake permission slips,
Like tickets,
things like that. But the way that he did it, now that I think of it, the soldiers, the prisoners, were allowed so many hours of exercise, mostly just marching around when they were in a camp, in a German camp. My husband and a friend noticed there was a well for drinking water in the area where they were exercising. They were playing soccer. My husband and a friend decided they would go into this well, a well for drinking water. They would hide in this well, and they did it by having their buddies stand up in the soccer field in such a way that the guards would not notice them. And so behind these friends, they managed to go down in the well, and then the buddies would put a lid. They had to slide the lid out, and then they slid it back in. And when the game was over, then they had to go back. The other people had to go back in the camp. But the thing was, when you went back in the camp, you were counted. And so they were missing, they would be missing 2 people. And the trick for that was they had dummies. They had made dolls. But the dolls were just the shoulders and the head. And the body was a stick. In the inner part of the column, they would put these dummies. And then so the Germans would count the heads and never noticed that there was 2 men missing. That's how he got out. When it became night, he and his buddy had to climb over the wall, which was 10 or 12 feet, I forget, quite steep anyway. So they had to run and then jump up and hope that they made it, which they did. And then they had to try to get out of there. And they knew there was a train station, and they had, inside the camp, other people had made fake tickets, train tickets. They were lucky. My husband was lucky. The station manager never noticed that these tickets were fake. And so he got towards Switzerland. In Switzerland, the Swiss police saw them, and the Swiss police Switzerland was neutral, so the Swiss police allowed them in. They had to go through, they had to find out connections, whether they were really prisoners or whether they were trying to create trouble. they let them stay there for a while. And then my husband got a chance to go to the south of Switzerland, and he was on his way to go to Spain, because in the camp they learned that if you were in Spain, you could go to Gibraltar, and at that time, during the wartime, there were plane trips by the Dutch. They would pick up any soldiers from any country and take them to England. He got to England, and then he, of course, had to, because this was wartime, he had to prove that he was really a soldier and that he was an escaped a POW. And then, I'm telling you this is very short, and then he joined the Dutch army there and was trained there to be a special agent. He finished the war in the Dutch East Indies, and that's where we met. So that's sort of the background of what happened.
Wow. That is a crazy story.
Yeah, but true stories are crazy.
Yeah. And when was his birthday? Like, how old was he, I guess, at the time?
How old was he in the war?
Yeah.
I guess he was about 30. I was 25, 30, so he must have been 30 some.
When is his birthday?
April the 4th, 1914.
And when did you guys come to Canada?
Well, it took a while to get out of the army. We were married at that time, so I guess it was 1949, 1950, in there. And there was an opportunity to go to another country and settle, and we chose Canada. Then he got a job in Canada. He was selling life insurance. And he was selling life insurance in this area, and a man on this street was on the school board. And I guess when he was talking to my husband, he realized that he was an educated man, and he said, why don't you apply to Acton? Why don't you fly to Acton and see whether they need a teacher there? And my husband was very good at math, and it seems that in Canada, math is a difficult subject. And so he got a job right away as math teacher in the high school in Acton. Did you have him as teacher?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he was teacher for quite a while. I guess until he retired. Well, the atom bomb came at that time, and that was the end of the war. You know, the United States and the other countries all decided to stop. And then we could do whatever we wanted to, get back to Holland or get back to Canada or whatever. So the war was over.
What does it mean for you to be Canadian? Are you proud to be Canadian and coming here? And what does that mean to you?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's because I was brought up by my parents to appreciate living in a free country. And so makes me patriotic.
Do you have any advice or a message for the next generation that maybe sees this video that
Oh
you would want
my
to share?
goodness.
To put you on the spot.
I think you should be grateful that you live in a country like Canada, where it's peaceful. You need to be grateful that you live in this country, because there's so many benefits for you. And I also think you should be aware of the political parties, take part in voting, whatever is necessary. Pay attention in the news as well. Pay attention to what the political parties are doing. It's important to know what's happening in our country. You are really, each individual is really important. I think people don't realize that. The power of one. We just don't realize it. That is my little reminder. Every half hour I have to get up and walk around.
30 minutes.
Oh. and walk around, I guess, get some exercise.
How old are you?
I'm 23.
Yes. So young.
Yeah. My girlfriend's birthday is a day after yours.
Oh, yeah?
And she'll be 24.
Oh, really?
So when I told her I was coming up here, and I told her your birthday, she was quite excited. She's like, "Oh, it's close to mine."
For goodness sakes.
Yeah, she'll be 20, she'll be 24.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Well, are you engaged yet?
Not yet.
You're going to be.
Yeah,
you hope.
We've been dating almost 4 years now. Yeah, we met when we were 19.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's great, that you stuck together that long.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a momentary fling.
Yeah, absolutely.
You will likely do all right.